Hey, welcome in.
Welcome to the Arrowhead Addict podcast.
We are here coming to you live.
The Kansas City Chiefs are going to the Super Bowl. You only win a Super Bowl 2 times every 5 years, right? Oh! The warm-up act is over. Let's bring in Melissa Etheridge, massive Chiefs fan. Melissa.
Super Bowl champion, 2-time Pro Bowler, and Trent Green. Trent Green, how you doing?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
He picked it up! He picked it up! He's gonna score!
And we'll see you next week. But until then, as always, go Chiefs.
Welcome to the Arrowhead Addict podcast. If you're watching all things Arrowhead, addicted to all things Chiefs, you're in the right place at the right time. I'm here with my friend, our good man. You have an impressive library looking. You're like studious Chiefs expert. Is the vibe you're giving off, Patrick? How are you tonight?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm glad you like the background. This is the desk I used to normally sit at. I flip things around and make it a nice background. You know, get a smoking jacket, glass of bourbon, pipe. This is the kind of room this is.
It's the kind of posh room that 4-time Super Bowl champion franchises now lean into. Like when you only have one, you've got like a background like mine. But once you're used to like several Hall of Famers and competing for Super Bowls, that's what you go for. Folks, thanks for joining us here on the show on the pregame. By the way, if you haven't already, any sort of review for the show, if you haven't subscribed here to the YouTube channel or wherever you pick up the podcast, that's always a big plus for us. Hit that thumbs up button, if you will. We are here tonight as the Chicago Bears are visiting Arrowhead. By the way, the Chiefs are kind of been able to sit at home for a while. Last week at home, this week at home. They open in 2 weeks with Baltimore, and then after that, Cincinnati as well. That's a nice long stretch to start the year, hanging out at home, and hopefully it helps them in the long run. Tonight, not a lot up for grabs. Obviously, preseason games are meaningless, and that could mean that a lot of fans kind of treat this as throwaway. If you're not going to see Mahomes, we're not going to see Kelsey, you could say no big deal. But we know the truth that glue guys on the roster, depth chart over the long haul is key. Patrick, for you, in a game where a lot of fans may go, what's the big deal about tonight? What's your biggest deal for this evening that you're looking for?
Well, look, I think you don't want to be sitting at your TV tonight to watch the football game, right? So think of it like you got to go to training camp and you're getting to watch a practice. I think that's the way to think about it. If you're looking for a good flow in terms of an NFL football game, you're going to be really disappointed and it's going to be boring. And I think what trap that I can fall into sometimes is when it gets to those later guys, there's no action and you find something else to kind of do while you're watching the game. You're on your phone. I encourage you not to do that because some of these guys that are going to be playing tonight are going to make the Chiefs roster. And it's a fun way for you to evaluate who that might be. So, a guy obviously I'll be looking forward to is are we going to get more of Carson Steele? Clyde Edwards-Helaire has been dealing with his PTSD situation. He's been listed as an illness. Not sure what's going on there. He could, for all I know, he could start the season on the PUP list or something if he's just not really ready to come back. And if that's the case, then the only lock running back you have on this roster right now is Isaiah Pacheco. So Carson Steele, Deneric Prince, the other guys, what do they do in a game like tonight? Watching every one of their snaps is going to be fascinating. And of course, the backup offensive line, it's really important as well.
Yeah, good call. I'm glad that you said that. On the offensive side, is that backfield the primary area for you to watch tonight, running back?
Yeah, nah. I'm probably looking more. Well, it's hard to know exactly who's going to play. Andy said starters are sitting. But then he did specifically mention in his press conference this week that there are guys that are competing for roster spots, and he wants to get a good look at them. So it's going to be instructive. I think like some guys are going to go out there, right? And you're going to see probably, Truman Jones or, some of these guys down, Owen Carney, probably not making the roster, right? But if you're looking out there and you're seeing, a tackle that's going to be out there, right? Obviously, Lucas Niang, if he's out there playing. If he's not out there playing, then you're probably like, okay, Lucas Niang is a lock. And if he's out there playing, it doesn't necessarily mean he's on the bubble, but it might mean that there's somebody else there right behind him that he's competing with, and you get to get extended snaps of Lucas Niang, which we've never really seen, to be perfectly honest with you. So it's an opportunity to evaluate those guys. So I'm a little concerned about the tackle position, the depth there, like Wanye Morris, Lucas Niang. How are those guys going to perform if they get called into action? So I'll be watching the offensive line first. But yeah, these running backs, does anybody have some juice out of these guys? Is it Ingram? What about Louis Rees-Zammit? Like, he's a guy that maybe they want to see. Like, what happens if we give this guy 12 carries, which he's gotten like one carry or something all preseason?
We haven't even brought up Imani Bailey, by the way, who actually earned a little bit of buzz when he first signed and then kind of been total bust once the preseason began. Before we get, we got a few positions to cover here before the game. And of course, we want to all tune in here in a few minutes. Wide receiver. There's a couple positions there. It feels like the last couple spots, maybe one, maybe two, are still up for grabs. You've got the obvious guys at the top of the depth chart: Xavier Worthy, Hollywood Brown. Sky Moore looks like a lock at this juncture to go with Justin Watson, to go with Rashee Rice. Justin Ross has looked the part. This week, Dave Toub said he's banging the table for Nico Remigio. We're looking at there's a couple other guys there too who have Montreal Washington. We haven't even brought up McCole Hardman. Hardman was given a chance to answer reporters' questions earlier this week, which is usually a good sign when the Chiefs make you available to the media, that they expect you to be around to talk for the team. What's your take on, are we going to keep 6? Are we going to keep 7? And if so, who's going to get those spots?
I would probably lean towards them. And now I haven't done my roster projections yet, so I'm going to sit down, probably this weekend sometime and just kind of go through what I think the depth chart's going to be, and that'll help me figure out where I think they're going to go with the number of each positions. But like, the Hollywood Brown injury is what really kind of complicates things in the wide receiver room. It's probably not a serious enough injury that you can start him on IR. So, you don't want to miss him 4 games because he would have come back. So you're going to have to stuff that roster a little bit for early in the season if you don't think if you don't think he's not going to be there. So I'm looking at Sky Moore is playing tonight, by the way. It sounds like Adam Teicher of the Kansas City Star, or of ESPN, formerly the Kansas City Star, said he is out there warming up. So they probably want to get an extended look at him. Not necessarily, again, roster bubble guy, but let's just kind of see what he can do in some extended snaps. Hardman, I think, is a guy that probably Andy feels the most comfortable with because of all of his experience in the offense. It sounds like Remigio is a guy that Dave Toub really likes on special teams. So that's going to be an Andy, Dave Toub conversation. So I'm going to lean towards them keeping 7 to start: Hollywood Brown, Justin Watson, Rashee Rice, Xavier Worthy, Sky Moore, McCole Hardman, and Nico Remigio. I don't think Justin Ross is going to make it. Yeah.
Wow.
Because of the special teams element, right? If you look at the depth chart, the unofficial depth chart, they have Xavier Worthy as a punt returner, but I don't think they're going to be using him there at least until Hollywood Brown gets back. And so if that's the case, their number 1 kick returner is Remigio, and their backup punt returner is Hardman, and their second kick returner is Hardman. So that puts a guy like Justin Ross, as physically talented as he is, on the outside looking in, even if they keep 7 wide receivers. I think it's a tough hill for Justin Ross to climb. I know he has been playing some special teams, but he's not a returner for you. So what's the value of having him? And when he couldn't get on the field and do anything last year. Like, I think that's the most damning thing for a guy like Justin Ross is like, bro, you haven't done anything since college and as physically talented as you are. Like they were dying for anybody to do anything last year at wide receiver, so much so that they traded for McCole Harbin to bring him back.
Yeah, you're right. You're right about that. We had a question at cornerback, and here's what's true. Even Steve Spagnuolo this week admitted we've got questions at cornerback. He said, look, we've got a lot of guys who've been injured. Justin Reed's injury has kept us from developing chemistry. He said we haven't once had our 11 starters on the field all at the same time because Chris Jones has been out with his shoulder. Justin Reed was out for a long time. In the midst of that, Brian Cook is coming back. And then at corner specifically, he said, hey, look, Joshua Williams, now he's out, or he was hurt earlier this week with a hamstring. Across from Trey McDuffie, you've got Joshua Williams, who's sort of a roller coaster of a player. Jalen Watson, who's coming back from labrum surgery that he played through last year. Najee Johnson, who's hardly ever been healthy, but is somehow in the conversation because he's that promising when he does play. And then behind him, you have a whole host of people from Kelvin Joseph to Keith Taylor to Echo Boyedo to Nick Jones to Miles Battle. It's just a long list of contenders there at cornerback. Let me bring this to you and first say, who do you think is mostly going to get that Snead spot on the boundary?
Oh man, I don't know. I think right now Joshua Williams seems to be the leader in the clubhouse. But I think that they're gonna play it by ear on this one. Like whoever starts the season might not be who finishes the season there. It just might be one of those situations where they feel really good about the depth pieces that they have, and they're confident in these guys, but they're just going to need to see Joshua Williams, go out there and do it. They're going to need to see Jalen Watson go out there and do it. And if Joshua Williams gets out there and he's struggling, then you put Jalen Watson in there. If Jalen Watson's struggling, if Najee Johnson makes the team, I think he will. You put Najee Johnson out there. He's a guy they've kept around. So I just think I think it's going to be, I think we talked about this last week. It could be a little bit like what they did with receiver last year, where they were just running guys in and out, looking at matchups that they liked, and trying to figure out who is the guy there. They're just going to need the reps to do it, and it's going to be trial by fire.
We're talking about some of the problematic areas where it's tough to make a call. But let me ask you this. Who is the guy who is, at this point, the easiest cut that the Chiefs are going to make in the next few days before roster cuts are due?
Easiest cut? Kadarius Toney.
Okay.
It's Kadarius Toney.
You're saying no chance at all?
No, man, no. I would put Cornell Powell on the roster before I put. At least Cornell Powell's done something as a receiver. And look, I always say this. I'll always be thankful for Kadarius Toney for what he did in the Super Bowl. Right? Huge moment. Helped the Chiefs win a Super Bowl. That alone, even though it's a sunk cost at this point, that for me, that makes the draft capital worth it. I don't care. It didn't work out. I don't care how much they paid him. He helped them win a Super Bowl. Book it. It worked. It worked. Okay. But Cornell Powell in that preseason gameplay that he had last week has done more as a receiver than Kadarius Toney has for the Chiefs. That was way more impressive than anything Kadarius Toney's done as a receiver. In fact, he's been a net negative for them. So I think he's an easy cut. It didn't work. It didn't work. The only guy he's ahead of on the depth chart is Montrell Washington. And in fact, Montrell Washington has done a nice job for the Chiefs in the past as a returner. So I don't even know why Kadarius Toney's in front of him.
Are you surprised to see Toney still on the roster? Do you think that the Chiefs are hoping that somebody out there is going to say, let us try to see if we can get some of that potential to work for us.
I don't think that they're that delusional. I just think he's still on the roster because there was just absolutely no reason to cut him.
Yeah.
But him not, they save absolutely nothing by cutting him, but so you might as well keep him on and see if it works out from an athletic skill set alone. It's worth bringing somebody like that back for another year of camp when it doesn't matter anyway, just to see maybe, hey, did Kadarius get his act together? The answer is no. He's still injured all the time, and he's obviously shown nothing in camp or practice to make the Chiefs think, oh, let's move him up in front of Sky Moore or even McCole Hardman for that matter.
Yeah. One area that I'm particularly interested in is because the Chiefs have shown particular interest in, and I'd love to get your take on this. On the outside, on the edges, right? We have George Karlaftis cemented in, and then Mike Dana was brought back, which was a surprise to me, by the way. That was maybe the most surprising offseason move, was them re-signing Dana for a multi-year deal. You got those two, but we know Omenihu is still out, and who knows. Really, we've been given no firm timeline as of yet on when to expect him back. And Udoka Uzoma is like the jury's still out there. It's a popular talking point about how much is he ever going to be able to offer? Is he just going to be a situational guy? Can he ever set the edge? Who knows? But B.J. Thompson had a seizure, underwent cardiac arrest earlier this training camp. He's now on the NFI list and probably just stashed there. Who knows? And I don't want to surmise anything there. What I don't know, except to say earlier this summer, Manny Ogba, who's a familiar face to Chiefs fans, he signed back in 2019, I believe, had a nice run with the team and showed some solid punch from the outside in limited time before he was injured or after he was injured. And then re-upped with the Dolphins. Anyway, he went to Miami, cashed in well. The summer was free again. The Chiefs reportedly showed interest, and then he re-upped with the Dolphins. When there's a public sentiment like that someone had, like the Chiefs have checked in on a particular position, it makes you think, were they just interested in Ogba because they knew him and thought he could fit in? Or is Brett Veach going around with a magnifying glass at that edge position, waiting for someone to wiggle free? I'm wondering, to you, what does that interest and what you're seeing at the edges tell you about the state of the position going into this game?
I think that what it tells me is that they don't think Felix Uzama is ready. And maybe if he's not ready at this point, he just may never be ready. I mean, I don't know, maybe he's a third year breakout guy or something, but it's not particularly encouraging because he's a former first round pick. He should be your starter opposite of George Karlaftis this year, right? If things go as you plan them to go, with Mike Dana coming in to rotate in for matchups. And to keep people fresh. And then you've got Charles Omenihu coming back. I think Brett Veach's job is to try to put together the most talent possible on the, and to let Spags and Andy figure out who they want to use where and when. And so I don't think that it means that Veach is in the interest in Ogba means that he's in a panic, but I think he's like, okay, here's a guy who can come in, maybe be another rotational piece. Let me see if I can get this guy in and let the coaches decide what they want to do. In actuality, I think he's probably looking at it and thinking to himself, we got to get this edge thing figured out on a more permanent basis, but I have got Charles Omenihu coming back. I really like Charles Omenihu, and I think that there's enough talent there. And that's a big reason to bring Mike Dana back, because you don't have Charles Omenihu. Mike Dana can help you get sacks. He's got some limitations. He's not the biggest guy. But when the Chiefs were interviewed, I think they did a little internal thing with their reporter last year. and they were asking all of the guys on the defense, like, who's the most underrated player in the Chiefs defensive room? And they were like, it's Mike Dana. Mike Dana is incredible. Mike Dana is always where he's supposed to be. He's a great teammate, all that stuff. So I don't think we should underestimate the impact of bringing Mike Dana back to help bridge the gap to Omenihu. Yeah. And I think they'll probably rotate FAU in there, maybe a little Malik Herring, and try to utilize Mike Dana. But the way that they're so exotic on defense with what Spags likes to do, that I think they feel good about you feel good about Karlaftis, and obviously you've got Chris Jones. So it's not like a red alert panic, because they're going to blitz corners and safeties and linebackers. They're going to be sending people from all over the place. So the fact that they don't have like a steady, guaranteed every down guy over on the other edge spot, when they've got a guy like Mike Dana who can come in and get 6-7 sacks for them potentially on a rotational basis, I think they feel okay about it.
Folks, you're listening to the Arrowhead Addict pregame podcast before the Chiefs host the Bears in the preseason finale. Looking forward to tonight. A lot of the guys who are playing know they're not playing for the Chiefs. A lot of the guys playing tonight, they've talked to their agents, they've talked to their reps, they've talked to friends, their trainers, whatever, and they know that whatever playing time they earn tonight will go as part of game tape that they hope other teams will notice. Earlier this week, the Chiefs themselves were talking about how their own front office guys, Mike Bergonzi, when he spoke with the media last, he said, yeah, we've got our guys looking around at every other professional team, scouting, wondering who they're going to set free. Certainly they're doing that, looking at a championship roster. Let me ask you this. What guy tonight can help himself the most in that regard? Maybe not being able to play himself onto the Chiefs roster because of talent or what trends the Chiefs tend to do in terms of how many people they carry at a particular position, but maybe someone who has still looked good, even if he doesn't have a spot here. I'm wondering if there's a guy who fits that mold for you as someone who, like, here's the guy who can help himself the most in terms of getting notice.
Yeah, there's a few guys. I think, Echo Boydo is somebody who, depending on what they decide to do with these cornerbacks, I mean, you got McDuffie and Watson and Williams, Najee Johnson, Shamari Connor. You've got Justin Reed and Brian Cook. Jaden Hicks has looked really good. I think they like Dion. So, I mean, it's crowded, man. And so one of these cornerbacks, whether it be Echo Boydo, Keith Taylor, they're guys that maybe are a little bit more of a long shot to stick, but that could if they put some nice things on tape this preseason, could find themselves getting picked up pretty quickly. You can't ever have too many good defensive backs. On the offensive side of the ball, I think, a guy like Nico Remigio, the same could be said for McCole Hardman, who the league has a couple off seasons now has indicated that they're not interested in McCole Hardman. So for him to go out and have a big game tonight, I've always said earlier, I think he's going to make the roster. But if he has a good game tonight, or if Nico Remigio has a good game tonight, one of those guys is going to make it, or even Justin Ross. Keep in mind, last year, preseason, game 3, Chiefs beat the Browns 33-32, as if that matters. And who had a really great game? Emir Smith-Marset, 4 receptions, 101 yards, and a touchdown on 4 targets. He gets himself traded because the Chiefs just couldn't keep him. So somebody trades for you at this point, even though it's going to probably be not for very much. They still traded for you. They wanted to make sure they got you on the team. That means you're probably you're gonna stick on that roster heading into the regular season. So I think these, a guy like Remigio, who the Chiefs really like, who's shown special teams ability, if for some reason he gets muscled out, or Hardman's getting muscled out, and they can go out there and put together, Hardman, go out there and show your speed tonight, show your athleticism. People need returners. People need back-end wide receivers. Not everybody has a depth chart as deep as the Chiefs. Those are guys that I think have a shot to find themselves on another roster. And hopefully, like Emir Smith-Marset did, some guys go out there and show out, and the Chiefs are actually able to trade them to pick up either a little bit of draft capital, 7th round conditional or something like that, or or a position where they're not as deep, like perhaps a running back.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you. I think the Chiefs are going to find one or two of their defensive backs poached. The Carolina Panthers just pulled off a trade today for cornerback Michael Jackson. So they're clearly in need of some help there. The Chiefs have the depth to be able to pull something off. We just have a few minutes left, folks. If you're enjoying this, don't forget to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Check out membership things going on. You can see where all the info is at. You can check out all of that with our Discord and whatnot. Patrick, going into tonight, I just want to get one more prediction from you before we let you go and we all get settled in with our Pringles for the Chiefs game. Are we sponsored by Pringles? We should be sponsored by Pringles. I'm just saying that out loud.
Should.
Anyway, let me ask you this. Every year, I believe, I'm usually surprised, I'll put it this way, when the Chiefs make their roster cuts and it doesn't go down to 53, but it actually goes down to 52 or even more, because they want to leave a roster spot open for a position where they want to go shopping. If that's going to happen this year, where are we going to see that?
Like which position group is going to be
Yeah.
the last off?
Yeah. Like, I'll go first if I
Go
could.
ahead.
I'm not enamored with any running back, like pretty much at all. I think I don't think anyone's going to claim Deneric Prince. I think you can throw him on the practice squad. No one's going to claim Imani Bailey. No one's going to claim Reese Zammit. I think they keep Carson Steele at a fullback role. I think they're keeping Pacheco. I think they may keep Clyde, but I think they're going to go shopping there for sure. So I think they're going to make more cuts there than what most people would project. What about you?
Right before you jumped in, I was going to say probably running back because
Sorry to
there's
steal
just
that thunder there.
No, it's okay. There's just nothing. There's nobody terribly overwhelming there. And I said this in previous shows this preseason. I think they're looking at that group, I think they look at the position in general as we can find guys to fit our system. They're out there. And if they don't love any of the guys they have and nobody's really emerged, they probably feel like there's going to be 2 or 3 guys that get cut loose that they can obtain to upgrade there. By the way, before we go, Adam Teicher has been pacing the sidelines, noting which Chiefs are not in uniform for warm-ups. And it's telling, right? Because we know the starters aren't the guys they don't want to risk aren't playing. On the defensive side of the ball, you're not going to see Joshua Williams, Cook, Justin Reed, McDuffie, Tranquil, Bolton, Dana, Chenal, Karloftis, Truman Jones, Mike Pinnell, Chris Jones, Turk Wharton. And then he tweeted also Najee Johnson. So there you go on Najee Johnson. Not going to be playing tonight. Looks like maybe he locked up his spot.
Interesting. I find Truman Jones interesting. He's a kid out of Harvard. Had like 6 sacks, I think, 13 tackles for loss his senior year. Signed out of the Ivy Leagues as a rookie free agent last year, and then just kind of spent the year hanging around on special teams. He looked good last week, better than Malik Herring in terms of any sort of disruptive upside. If he could even fill in with a few quality reps while Amenahu's still rehabbing, that could be the answer. I'm a little surprised if he's not suiting up tonight, but maybe they are already all in on him. Who knows?
Yeah, and look, they're also they're not going to be playing Carson Wentz tonight, so you're in for more Ian Book, probably, which is not necessarily a good thing. But I like Oladukin. I like watching him play, so maybe he'll get an extended look here.
By the way, Ian Book probably would have started during the Todd Haley years. Let's be honest about that. Yeah.
I just real quick before we go, it always amazed me that Ricky Stanzi could never get on the field. Like, how bad must have Ricky Stanzi been that those quarterbacks? He was a great American, but could not get on the field. I'm sorry to give people like flashbacks and all that talk about Ricky Stanzi. But
I just mentally pledged allegiance there for a second. Thanks for this, Stanzi. Folks, you may have your hand over your heart or not, but you've been listening to the Arrowhead Addict podcast. My name is Matt Connor. It's been a pleasure to be with you all. Stay right here. Patrick Allen will be back at halftime to talk about everything you're seeing in the next 2 quarters, and he'll be back again after the show. Any guests after the show? Anyone hanging out?
it's just me. Everybody bailed on me.
Oh, maybe there'll be a surprise. Who knows? But Patrick is enough. Join Patrick after the show for the breakdown of the finale at Arrowhead this preseason and what we learned about the Chiefs and their likely roster moves coming up. For now, we'll all get ready to watch Chiefs Bears. And as always, go Chiefs.
Go Chiefs.